How about you go back to your deliveries and leave the real work to those who understand it? Those words cost Acito everything he'd ever worked for. Picture this. It's a cold Tuesday morning in Chicago, and the city's tech district is buzzing with its usual energy. Glass towers reach toward the sky, filled with some of the brightest minds in technology. But our story doesn't start in one of those fancy corner offices. No, it starts on the street level, with a young woman named Maya Johnson, carrying a thermal backpack and riding her beat-up bicycle from one delivery to the next. Maya was 24 years old, and if you saw her weaving through Chicago traffic, you might think she was just another delivery driver trying to make ends meet. And you'd be right, but you'd also be missing the most important part of her story. Because Maya carried something with her that no thermal backpack could hold. A brilliant mind that the world had never given a chance to shine. Every morning, Maya would look up at those towering buildings and remember a different life. One where she wore business suits instead of delivery uniforms, where she solved complex problems instead of navigating traffic jams. But life, as it often does, had other plans for her. This particular Tuesday was about to change everything. The elevator doors opened on the 23rd floor of Innovate Tech Solutions, and Maya stepped into what looked like a scene from a disaster movie. Red warning lights flashed across dozens of screens, and the air was thick with panic. 20 of the company's top engineers, men and women who had graduated from places like Stanford, MIT, and Carnegie Mellon, were running around like their hair was on fire. And maybe it was, metaphorically speaking, because for 3 hours, Innovate Tech's entire system had been down. Not just down, completely crashed. And every minute that ticked by meant millions of dollars in losses, not just for Innovate Tech, but for the dozens of client companies that depended on their systems to run their businesses. At the center of this chaos stood Robert Stevens, the Chief Technology Officer. Picture a man who had never been told no in his professional life. Stanford graduate, 15 years of experience, $200,000 salary, and an ego to match. Robert commanded respect in the tech world, or at least he thought he did. His team represented what he believed was the pinnacle of technical expertise. Maya walked into this storm carrying nothing but a simple lunch order. She wasn't supposed to be there solving problems. She was just there to drop off Robert's sandwich and move on to her next delivery. But as she placed the bag on the conference table, something caught her eye. There, displayed on the main screen for everyone to see, was an error code that told a story. "Sorry," Maya said quietly, adjusting the strap of her backpack. "But that error is caused by a cache memory conflict. You tried to reboot the primary server without clearing the pending transaction buffer." The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. 20 engineers stopped what they were doing. Computer keyboards fell silent. Phone conversations ended mid-sentence. Every single person in that room turned to stare at this young black woman who had just done something impossible. She had identified in seconds what they had been struggling to solve for hours. The silence wasn't just quiet. It was deafening. It was filled with disbelief, wounded pride, and something much uglier. The shock of having their assumptions shattered by someone they had dismissed without a second thought. Robert's reaction was swift and brutal. His laughter cut through the silence like a knife. "Very funny," he said, his voice dripping with a kind of condescension that could make someone feel 2 inches tall. "I bet you didn't even finish high school. How about you go back to your deliveries and leave the real work to those who understand it?" The other engineers joined in like a pack of wolves sensing weakness. Marcus Kim, the senior engineer, crossed his arms and looked down at Maya with disgust. "Girl, this isn't like fixing a broken microwave. This is an infrastructure system that moves millions of dollars." Another engineer laughed. "Did you learn that from watching YouTube videos?" The mockery spread through the room like wildfire. Here was a young delivery driver, a black woman no less, daring to suggest that she understood their sophisticated systems better than they did. The audacity of it! The complete lack of understanding about the natural order of things, as Robert would later put it. But Maya didn't flinch. She didn't get angry or defensive. Instead, she stood there with a calmness that was almost unsettling. If you looked closely, really closely, you might have seen something dangerous in her brown eyes. A quiet confidence that suggested she knew something they didn't. "All right," she said softly, her voice steady as stone. "But when you find out that I'm right and the system is back up and running in exactly 2 minutes after you follow my suggestion, remember this moment." Robert's laughter became even louder, more exaggerated. 2 minutes? Honey, that system has been down for 3 hours. We have a team of 20 experts trying to fix it. You really think a food delivery girl is going to teach us something? Maya smiled then, just slightly. It was a smile that didn't reach her eyes, but carried a weight that made some people in the room feel inexplicably uncomfortable. It was the smile of someone keeping a secret too powerful to be revealed before the right moment. But here's what Robert and his team didn't know. Couldn't know, because they had never bothered to look beyond the thermal backpack and delivery uniform. Maya's story wasn't one of academic failure or lack of ambition. It was a story of sacrifice that would break your heart and inspire you at the same time. Just 2 years earlier, Maya had been a third-year computer science student with dreams as big as those Chicago skyscrapers. She wasn't just getting good grades. She was excelling, creating programs that impressed her professors and solving problems that challenged her classmates. But life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. "Maya, honey, I need to tell you something," her mother Patricia had said one evening, her voice trembling in a way that Maya had never heard before. The words that followed changed everything. Cancer. Advanced stage. Treatment options that cost more than their family could ever afford. Maya faced a choice that number 22-year-old should ever have to make. Continue her education and watch her mother die, or drop out of college and work to pay for the medical treatment that might save her mother's life. For Maya, there was no choice at all. So she left her dorm room, said goodbye to her professors, and moved back home to share a cramped bedroom with her mother. Her makeshift office became a cardboard box in the corner, and her computer lab was a used laptop she had bought with borrowed money. While her former classmates attended lectures and joined study groups, Maya worked 3 different jobs during the day and taught herself programming during the early morning hours when the world was quiet and her mother was sleeping. But here's the remarkable part. Maya didn't just survive this transition. She thrived. Working alone in that cramped bedroom, she created something that even Innovate Tech's million-dollar systems couldn't match. A route optimization algorithm for delivery drivers that was more efficient than anything the tech industry had produced. She had turned her need to survive into a masterclass in innovation, creating programs that maximized her earnings while minimizing her time on the road. Every line of code she wrote was driven by love. Love for her mother and determination to save her life. So when Maya stood in that control room, surrounded by engineers who thought her uniform told them everything they needed to know about her intelligence, she carried with her 2 years of coding experience that had been forged in the fires of necessity. She had learned to see patterns that others missed, to find solutions that others overlooked, because for her, coding wasn't just a career, it was a lifeline. True to her prediction, exactly 2 minutes after the engineers reluctantly followed her suggestion, the system hummed back to life. The red warning screens turned green. The crisis was over. The engineers exchanged uncomfortable glances, but Robert Stevens was far from gracious in defeat. A man of his stature and credentials simply couldn't accept that a delivery driver knew something he didn't. His wounded ego began plotting something that would soon turn Maya's moment of vindication into the catalyst for a battle she never wanted to fight. But Maya had no idea what was coming. As she picked up her thermal backpack and headed for the elevator, she thought her part in this story was over. She had no way of knowing that Robert Stevens was about to make the biggest mistake of his professional life. A mistake that would awaken something in Maya that he could never have imagined. The elevator doors closed behind her, but this story was just beginning. 3 days. That's how long Robert Stevens' wounded ego festered before it exploded into action. You see, some people can handle being wrong. They learn from it, grow from it, become better because of it. But Robert wasn't one of those people. Robert was the kind of man who believed that admitting a mistake, especially to someone he considered beneath him, was worse than the mistake itself. So he did what cowards do when they can't face their own inadequacies. He decided to destroy the person who had exposed them. "I've got her information," Marcus Kim said, walking into Robert's office with a smug grin. Maya Johnson, 24 years old, works for 3 different delivery apps. Lives on the east side, you know, the rough part of town. And here's the best part. Marcus paused for dramatic effect. She's a college dropout. Robert's eyes lit up with vindication. In his mind, this confirmed everything he believed about people like her. They were pretenders, wannabes who thought they could play in his world without paying their dues. People like her, Robert said, turning to stare out his window at the city below, think they can come into our world and talk to us as equals. She doesn't understand that there's a hierarchy, a natural order of things. What Robert didn't understand, what he refused to understand, was that Maya's dropout status wasn't a mark of failure. It was a badge of sacrifice, worn by someone who had chosen love over ambition, family over personal gain. But men like Robert don't look that deep. They see the surface and think they've seen the soul. Robert picked up his phone and began making calls. He used his influence as a corporate customer to contact every delivery app in the city. His story was carefully crafted, designed to sound official and concerning. Allegations of inappropriate behavior, disrespect toward customers, unprofessional conduct. As the chief technology officer of one of the largest companies in Chicago, he lied smoothly to each supervisor. "I cannot allow disrespectful employees to continue providing services here." Within 24 hours, Maya's world collapsed. 3 notifications arrived on her phone like death sentences. Account suspended, account suspended, account suspended. No detailed explanation, no right to defend herself, no source of income. Picture Maya sitting in her kitchen that evening, staring at a pile of medical bills that seemed to grow taller every day. Her mother's treatment was working, but the cost was crushing them. And now, with no way to earn money, those bills might as well have been mountains. Her hands trembled slightly as she reread the suspension messages. But it wasn't fear that caused the tremor. It was something much more dangerous. It was the quiet rage of someone who had been pushed too far. "Honey, what's wrong?" Patricia asked, shuffling into the kitchen. She moved slowly, still recovering from her latest chemotherapy session. But her mother's intuition was as sharp as ever. "Nothing, Mom," Maya said, forcing a smile as she hugged Patricia gently. "Just a problem at work. I'll take care of it. I'll fix everything," she whispered. And in that moment, something fundamental shifted inside her. The Maya who had quietly accepted mockery and humiliation was gone. In her place stood someone who had finally decided to fight back. That night, Maya opened her laptop and began typing. But this wasn't the desperate job searching you might expect, or the angry social media posts that would accomplish nothing. This was something far more calculated, far more devastating. Every line of code she wrote that night was fueled by years of condescension, years of being looked through instead of looked at, years of having doors slammed in her face simply because of how she looked or where she came from. Robert Stevens thought he had destroyed a simple delivery driver. He had no idea that he had just awakened the fury of a programming genius who had been hiding in plain sight. Help came from the most unlikely source. Hi Maya, I'm Lisa Chun. I work at Innovate Tech. I was there the day you solved our system problem. I need to tell you some things about what Robert did to you. Can we talk? The message appeared in Maya's inbox like a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. At first, Maya hesitated. It could be a trap, another way for Robert to humiliate her. But something in Lisa's words felt genuine, desperate even. They met at a small coffee shop in downtown Chicago, the kind of place where conversations could happen without being overheard. Lisa was nervous, constantly looking around as if Robert might appear at any moment. He really did that? Maya asked after listening to a recording that made her blood run cold. It was Robert's voice, clear as day, bragging to his team about destroying her career. Remember that girl who dared to correct us last week? Robert's recorded voice laughed. Well, let's just say she won't be bothering us anymore. I use my contacts to make sure she's blacklisted from every delivery app in the city. The casual cruelty of it, the way he spoke about ruining someone's life like it was a funny joke, hit Maya like a physical blow. Worse, Lisa said, her own voice shaking with anger. He's bragging about it. Robert Harrison is a narcissist who can't stand being corrected by anyone, especially a black woman. He did this out of pure wounded ego. Lisa slid a piece of paper across the table. These are the contact details for all of Innovate Tech's major corporate clients, companies that rely on our systems for critical operations. If someone could prove that Robert is making decisions based on personal bias rather than technical competence. Maya took the paper with trembling hands. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Lisa's eyes filled with pain. Because I've been where you are. 3 years ago, Robert tried to fire me after I corrected a mistake he made in an investor presentation. The only difference is that I had union protection and a lawyer. You didn't have that luck, but maybe we can create our own justice. That night, Maya worked with an energy she hadn't felt since her college days. But now she wasn't just building a program. She was building a trap. What Maya discovered during those sleepless nights would have shocked even Robert's harshest critics. Innovate Tech's systems weren't just flawed. They were catastrophically vulnerable. Security holes big enough to drive trucks through. Vulnerabilities that had been there for months. Problems that any competent programmer should have spotted during routine maintenance. Robert and his team of 20 experts had missed them all. Maya's plan was elegant in its simplicity. She created professional social media profiles and began reaching out to CTOs and technology officers at companies that used Innovate Tech's services. Her offer was straightforward: free security audits to identify potential vulnerabilities in their systems. Nothing illegal, nothing unethical. Just a talented consultant offering her expertise to companies that needed it. What these companies didn't know was that many of the vulnerabilities Maya would find traced back directly to Innovate Tech's shoddy work. The first domino fell on a Monday morning. Robert arrived at his office to find his secretary pale and shaking, holding a stack of urgent messages. "Mr. Stevens," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to talk. We've had 12 contract cancellations in the last 24 hours. 12 contracts. Nearly 60% of Innovate Tech's annual revenue. All citing the same reason. Critical security flaws identified by an independent consultant named K. Johnson." Robert's phone rang. It was Richard Goldman, CEO of one of their biggest clients. "Robert, I'm canceling our contract immediately. This K. Johnson consultant found vulnerabilities that you assured us didn't exist. Even worse, we've discovered that you've known about these flaws for months and didn't tell us." Robert's hands started shaking. "Richard, there must be a misunderstanding. The misunderstanding was trusting you. This consultant showed us system logs dating back 6 months. You've exposed us to catastrophic risks and lied about it." One by one, the calls came in. Angry clients, canceled contracts, threats of lawsuits. And always the same name, K. Johnson. But it was Lisa's email that delivered the final blow. Sent to every employee in the company, with a subject line that would become legendary. Transparency and integrity, a necessary conversation. The email detailed everything. Robert's confession about sabotaging Maya's career, the recording of him bragging about it, the systematic negligence that had cost clients millions. Within minutes, it was all over social media. Within an hour, every tech blog in Chicago was covering the story. Maya's return to Innovate Tech was nothing like her first visit. This time, she walked through those glass doors accompanied by a lawyer, 2 journalists, and the full authority of the board of directors who had hired her to conduct a comprehensive audit. "Surprise," she said, standing in Robert's doorway with that same serene smile. "I'm here to do that security audit you insisted I wasn't capable of doing." Robert's face went white. You can't be here." "Security? Call security." "I didn't break in," Maya replied calmly. "I was officially hired by Innovate Tech's board of directors following revelations of systematic negligence. Apparently, when 12 major clients cancel contracts on the same day, shareholders start asking uncomfortable questions. The journalists turned on their cameras. Maya opened her laptop and began her presentation. 23 critical vulnerabilities that should have been fixed months ago, costing clients at least $4 million in losses. "The interesting part," Maya said, her voice steady and professional, "is that these flaws were easily identifiable. Any competent programmer would have spotted them during a basic routine review." Robert slumped in his chair, finally understanding the magnitude of what he had unleashed. He had tried to destroy someone because his ego couldn't handle being corrected. Instead, he had awakened someone whose technical skills, combined with her thirst for justice, would bring down everything he had built. 6 months later, Maya sat in her own office on the 21st floor of a Chicago skyscraper, looking out at the same city that had once seemed impossible to conquer. Her company, CyberShield Consulting, had grown from an idea born of injustice into one of the most respected cybersecurity firms in the Midwest. 17 new contracts this month, Lisa reported, now serving as Maya's director of operations. 3 of them are former Innovate Tech clients who came to us specifically because of our reputation. Robert had been fired, of course. Innovate Tech had lost 80% of its clients and was considering bankruptcy. Robert's attempts to rebuild his career were hampered by that viral recording. No one in the tech community would work with someone who had so openly displayed such prejudice and abuse of power. Maya's mother, Patricia, whose health had improved dramatically with access to better medical care, put it perfectly. "That man tried to destroy you because he thought you weren't worthy of being on his level. Now you're 3 levels above him." But Maya had learned something important about revenge. The best kind isn't about making your enemy suffer. It's about building something so extraordinary that they realize exactly how small they were when they tried to diminish you. A year after that first delivery, Maya was invited to speak at the National Technology Conference, the same event where Robert had been a keynote speaker for 5 years. This time, he wasn't even on the guest list. Meanwhile, Robert lived in a small studio apartment, his luxury lifestyle lost to legal debts and professional disgrace. He had learned the hard way that reputation takes years to build and seconds to destroy. Maya's story became more than just personal triumph. It became a movement. CyberShield Consulting now employed 45 people, many of them talented individuals who had been underestimated by traditional companies. She had proven that diversity and technical excellence didn't just go hand in hand. They made each other stronger. Robert Stevens had tried to destroy a delivery driver because he couldn't accept that she was smarter than him. Instead, he had lost everything while unwittingly helping to create one of the most innovative technology companies in the region. And Maya? Maya learned that sometimes the universe uses our greatest challenges to lead us to our greatest destiny. She had turned prejudice into purpose, humiliation into motivation, and injustice into a company that would change how the tech industry thought about talent. The delivery driver, who had once carried other people's lunches, was now carrying the hopes and dreams of everyone who had ever been underestimated. And she was just getting started.